All right, Big Bang. Today is Friday. It is February 3rd. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Today I'm joined by Cook County Commissioner and mayoral candidate Brandon Johnson. Brandon, welcome to the show. Thank you for doing this, man.
Of course. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so Brandon, I'm just kind of, going down the line here. I had Cam on last week, kind of going through the candidates, just where, let us know, like, where you're from, what's the background and everything. How'd you get into the race? Why do you want to do this and everything like that?
Yeah, I appreciate all 12 questions at once. That's a really good way to get started. I try to tackle them all.
I just throw the fucking whole bowl of spaghetti at you, man.
I appreciate that. It sounds like the Bears offense, just like ready, set, go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, I do appreciate the opportunity. So I've been serving as a Cook County Commissioner. Recently, I was reelected, but really the job that helped transform my politics is that of a public school teacher. I started teaching well over 15 years ago, 7th and 8th graders, and I was teaching in Cabrini Green. And, Cabrini Green really captures the essence of the city of Chicago. For folks who may not be aware, this is an historic, location for Black working class families in public housing. So my aunt and uncle, my aunt was a teacher's assistant, my uncle was a truck driver, raised my cousins there. But, in Cabrini, my students could see and hear and practically touch one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the entire city from their back windows. But out of their front windows, they had bulldozers staring them down because the politics of old that have failed families was preparing to destroy their public housing. And, these are the conditions in which many families in the city of Chicago face, where, they wake up every morning, chase down this economy that's behind them while everything in front of them is crumbling. And that's really why I'm running to be the next mayor of the city of Chicago, to ultimately put an end and retire this tale of two cities and usher in a stronger, better, safer Chicago.
Okay. So that was a time. When was that exactly?
So I started teaching, 2007.
Okay.
Over there, yeah.
2007 over there, yeah.
Yeah.
The whole Cabrini, it was so fascinating to me.
It really, as I said, it's the politics of old that have failed us, where opportunities, only exist in certain areas. And in fact, the type of despair that I've described in Cabrini, this is, something that I live through every single day. My wife and I, we're raising our children on the west side of Chicago, Austin, the Austin neighborhood. It's a beautiful community. One of the largest concentration of Black folks in the entire world in this one particular community. And as beautiful as it is, it also has experienced disinvestment, so much so it is one of the most violent neighborhoods in the entire city of Chicago. And, I can count countless times. There are countless times in which my wife and I have had to cover our children because gunshots rang out right outside our front door. And we've had to change a window from one of the bullets that have come through our home. This is something that doesn't just show up on the news, right? These are experiences that we live through every single day. And that type of despair has proliferated throughout the entire city of Chicago. And so everyone feels a little less safe and a little less hopeful. And that's, again, why I'm in this race, to restore the city of Chicago so that no one is too poor to live in one of the richest cities and one of the richest countries at the wealthiest time in the history of the world.
And I think, just going through everything, I don't want to use the word polarizing, but running this race, obviously would you use that word though?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So you would say you become a polarizing figure in this race?
It has to be that way, quite frankly.
Okay.
So look, I'm an organizer,
yeah.
Right? So I was a teacher, then I started organizing with the Chicago Teachers Union. So, back in 2012, when labor was not pushing for an agenda that spoke to the learning and working conditions, right? The conditions in which our students live in. And so, you have to call the question, right? Mm-hmm. And in the city of Chicago, again, one of the richest cities in the world right now, at the wealthiest time in the history of the world, 65,623 people in the city of Chicago are unhoused. 20,000 of them are students, right? I've looked in the eyes of young people who show up in my classroom who were doubled up or had nowhere to live or stay for a variety of reasons. And so, Yes, polarizing, not in the, stereotypical traditional like Chicago way, like Cubs versus Sox, right?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. But polarizing to the extent in which we are calling on those with means, these ultra rich, these huge corporations that continue to benefit from this economy, and they're not contributing their fair share. So yes, I'm requiring people to do more than what they've been accustomed to doing.
Mm-hmm. So that's it. So you would say, like, right off the top, like, hey, you want like the ultra rich to do more when it comes to the city of Chicago. Like, what does that look like for you? Like, what are a couple things that you like think could be like enacted quickly to kind of help out?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, when we were fighting and organizing for a progressive income tax in the state of Illinois, though the progressive income tax failed, the city of Chicago, residents of the city of Chicago, we are very clear about the type of investments that we need to make in order to have a better, stronger, safer Chicago. Safe American cities all have one thing in common. They invest in people. So 71% of Chicagoans said that the wealthy in this state must pay their fair share in taxes. So I'm aligned with the vast majority of working people in the city of Chicago. And so to your question, I'm the only person in this race that has put forth a budget plan that deals with the structural deficit that continues to harm our economy while also making critical investments, right? And so all these other candidates who are talking about their transportation plan or their education plan, their public safety plan, without a plan to pay for it, is just irresponsible. The role of the mayor of the city of Chicago as an executive, you got to put forth a budget plan that speaks to it. And so, yes, a financial transaction tax, a real estate transfer tax, right? These are taxes on the ultra rich in this city that really want a safe city like the rest of us, right? And they're prepared and willing to invest in a city if they know we're going to be responsible with those resources. I mean, we've talked repeatedly about a corporate head tax in which larger companies really did not have a big deal paying the corporate head tax, like $1 to $4 per head, could raise $20-30 million. Their issue was paperwork. I'm like, look, I'm a teacher. I can fix that. I don't know too many teachers who enjoy doing lesson plans. So let's figure out how we can streamline the paperwork to make it more palatable for the corporations to actually deliver the resources that are needed to have a better, stronger, safer Chicago.
Can you go into those three taxes and bring it down as simply as possible?
Yeah.
For people like me who don't understand that.
Yeah,
shit.
no, that's all good. No, I'm moving pretty quickly.
I think that's important. People who are just like, I'm not really into the whole the jargon, I guess.
Yeah.
So you said the transfer tax. You said the corporate tax, and what was the first one? So
let me just also say this. My budget plan does not raise property taxes.
Okay.
Those are the failed politics of old that have gotten us in this predicament in the first place. So a corporate head tax, you have corporations that have more than 50 employees. We can negotiate that. And pretty much once you get over 50, you pay $1 to $4 per head.
Okay.
That's it. So it's a head tax. Once you get over 50, you pay that head tax. I'm even willing to negotiate with these corporations that if you hire from communities where poverty and violence per capita reflects developing nations, like what it looks like on the west side of Chicago in particular, like Garfield Park, we're willing to provide some incentive for you to hire folks. And then there's less on that particular head, especially if it comes from a community that we really need to hire folks from.
That's good.
And so then there's the real estate transfer tax. So basically, if you have property that's over $1 million, we would shift. Everybody pays a real estate transfer tax once you get a property that's over $1 million. And I don't know too many people who have properties over $1 million. But in that case, we would charge a slightly different tax rate that could ultimately generate revenue to deal with the 65,000 plus families who are unhoused. And then there's the financial transaction tax. It's basically a transaction tax on high-speed trading. There's a lot of trading that is done in the corporate world, right? And so as those financial exchanges happen, like at the Mercantile, for instance, the revenue generated from those high-speed trades, and we're talking 0.0002% or something. That revenue, again, is used to fully fund our schools, to fully fund our parks, to have, how about this, a reliable transportation system, right, so that people can get to and fro, if you will, throughout the city of Chicago. And it puts us in a stronger, better, safer state if we actually are investing in people.
Mm-hmm. And these three will go a long way into balancing the budget and putting us in a good financial situation.
Absolutely. I'm going to do that in my first term, right? But I'm also going to make, necessary cuts. We have waste and bloated spending. For instance, the administrative worker ratio is out of line with national averages. The national average is about 10 to 1, right? So for every 10 workers, you have an administrator. If we actually put our budget in line with national averages, we could save $150 million. By just having modernized technology to help us with our paperwork, we could save another $20 million. Collaborating with our healthcare system, with Cook County government, which I'm a Cook County commissioner, I have the relationships there to do that. We could save millions of dollars there. And I have not even put forth a full audit yet of the budget, which I'll do once I become the mayor of the city of Chicago. And we're going to find more savings. So it's a matter of making the cuts from the bloat that exists within our economy, challenging those who are benefiting from taxpayers in the city, the ultra rich, the larger corporations to pay their fair share in taxes. We can balance our budget, make critical investments without raising property taxes for a better, stronger, safer Chicago.
Okay, so that's all straight from the horse's mouth. What you say, what's going to happen. So let's go through some things that people are saying, I guess. And this is what I want to ask you. This is why you're here, right? And this is what a lot of people are reading. It's like, oh, Brandon Johnson, this guy, he's going to do that. He's going to do this. And that's a big talking point when people are running it, right? And I think the difference is here is, you have the incumbent in Lori, right? You have Paul, who's ran for, multiple. He ran in 2019. He ran for other elected positions, and I think he ran for governor before, and obviously Chewy's run before. So you're, as far as mayor goes, you're the new one on the block, and you have some steam, right? So there's all these kind of, I don't want to say misconceptions, but there are these reports like, oh, this guy's going to do this and that. So there was a report of the 3.5% tax on people who make over $100,000. Is that true? Is there truth behind that? Is it something you're looking to do, or is that something that was taken and misconstrued?
So that's not in my plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Did you hear that though?
I did. So
yes.
We'll just say it. Look, the Sun-Times reported it. They reported it in error. They retracted that.
Okay.
It's wrong.
That's why you ask. For real though, because it's crazy how stuff spreads like that, like wildfire,
Oh, absolutely. Look, I mean, are there forces in this city that do not want to see the movement reach the fifth floor? Of course. Right? Look, Brandon Johnson has been brought to us by the movement that brought us an elected representative school board, the movement that provided civilian oversight over policing, the movement that called for a moratorium on school privatization, the movement that really challenged this city to look closer at how the individuals with disabilities, how they're treated, the movement, of course, that challenged this government because it closed mental health facilities down, right? This is why I'm in this position, because there have been a lot of people who have sacrificed everything. There were families who went on a hunger strike, which I joined to keep Diet High School a neighborhood high school. I joined the last days of that hunger strike just to provide support as our siblings who were out there struggling to bring attention to this issue begin to fade. And General Iron, there were, people close to me who starved themselves to prevent a toxic waste dump from coming into the southeast side of the city of Chicago. These are the fights that we've been a part of. This is the type of organizing that I've been a part of over the course of my career. And I do believe that the movement for a better agenda is expanding. Obviously, we're catching fire. But there's also forces that want to try to stop and prevent that. But look, I come from a very large family, 1 of 10. My brother would always say, my eldest brother, if you're ducking, you're probably losing. So that's why I'm swinging and punching back.
It's a good way to look at it for sure.
Yeah, I'm not encouraging people to walk around and just start punching people. This is
Yeah,
more,
yeah, yeah.
you know, this is, I don't want to be literal here.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Cook
yeah.
County
But
Commission
like-
is calling
but-
for people to punch people out.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure. I get the expression.
Right.
Yeah, I get the expression. For sure. So we'll just kind of keep going down the list here. So what about the? There was a report of a hotel tax. A 66% hotel tax. I read that.
Yeah. So look, first of all, let me just say that our document is a living document, right? One of the reasons why we put this budget plan out is so that people can take a look at it. The problem that we've had in the past is that people, in particular politicians and insiders, you know, they're not going to keep it 100 with the people.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm going to tell people the truth.
Yeah.
Look, if we want to pull ourselves up out of this, you know, mired state of despair, where our debt continues to drag down our economy, if we want to make sure that we are fully funding our transportation system, healthcare, education, we have to pay for it, right? And so everything is on the table except for property taxes. That's what has choked the life out of our economy. An economy that does not invest in people is why we're in this predicament. An economy that continues to place the burden on working people is why we're in this condition. And the fact that we don't have a real safety plan, which I do, is why we're in this predicament. So yes, I'll say it like this: the revenue desires that I have put forward, we're gonna ask the suburbs, we're gonna ask the ultra rich to contribute to this economy in which they benefit from. And so, of course, we want to continue to attract people to the city of Chicago. It is still the city of Chicago, right? It's a beautiful place. It has not lived up to its promise for many neighborhoods throughout the city. And so, yes, we are considering, and if the city council and the people of the city of Chicago do not see that as a viable option, then I'm going to need more people to bring some options to the table so that we can actually invest in the neighborhoods that really need it. In order to have a better, stronger, safer Chicago, we have to invest in people.
What is the suburb part look like? How does that work?
Well, there's been talks about commuter taxes. This takes place just like the financial transaction tax. It exists in the state of New York. You know, folks did not just pack up and move and leave. But we have individuals who commute into the city of Chicago who benefit from all of our amenities, from all of our city services. Asking people who benefit from the amenities of the city of Chicago to put some skin in the game in order to have a better, stronger, safer Chicago, I don't believe that's unreasonable. And I am a collaborative human being. So again, if these particular provisions to generate revenue for a better, stronger, safer Chicago are provisions that people are either uneasy with, they don't see a pathway towards it, then we continue to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. And then you said the safety plan. Another thing, people would say Brandon Johnson, he's a defund the police guy, right? That's what
people say.
That's what people say.
Yeah.
So what's your response to that, I guess?
Well, first of all, the defunders that exist in this particular race, it's Paul Vallis, it's Lori Lightfoot. They've defunded our public schools. They've defunded our public transportation system. They've defunded our health care. If there's anything you can refer to me as an investor, because that's what I promote. The same old stale politics that continues to leave our communities behind and less safe, we're going to retire that, right? We're spending more on policing than anywhere else in the world. I mean, the budget is now up to $300 million, right? And so we have to ask ourselves, are we any safer? With all of the dollars that we are spending towards jails and incarceration, are we any safer? I talk about Austin a lot because that's where I live. It's where I'm raising my family.
Whereabouts in Austin, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't mind. I mean, it's public record. It's basically central. No, it's okay. It's central, and central in Chicago. Right. And so, and I'm glad you asked that because we're a few blocks away from Oak Park, and without getting too distracted here, Oak Park has 2 school districts that are fully funded. They have 3 libraries that are open to 9 o'clock. They have the blue line, the green line. They have their own public health system. What else they got over there? Parks and recreation. I mean, I'm talking about a fully funded structure. And this is all I'm saying about the city of Chicago. Safe American cities invest in people. And so my plan calls for what safe American cities do. We invest in people. The park districts in Oak Park run year round, nonstop. You can sign your children up for whatever you believe your child can be. There's a class for you. Seriously. Versus the park program on the west side where my children attend, Garfield Park, the program closes at 1 o'clock. You know, how does that work for working people? Think about the number of families that are looking for a park that could teach their kids to swim, or a park where your child can receive a job and work with young people and create opportunities there. That's what my plan calls for investing. And the last thing that I'll say about Austin, there was a report that was done. $500 million, it's called $1 Million Blocks. $500 million has been spent to incarcerate the residents of Austin. And yet my children do not have neighborhood schools to attend because they play the violin, the viola, and the cello. No orchestra programs. And so my children, we go in two opposite directions, Portage Park and Hyde Park, just so that our children have access to a public education. The fact that we are spending more money on locking people up than educating them, that's unconscionable, and that's going to change under my administration. A better, stronger, safer Chicago requires investments.
So that's how it looks for you. So it's not in a sense of, you don't see it as like putting more officers out on the street. It's more putting more funds into the youth and trying to, make these programs better to point, these kids in the better direction to succeed.
Look, I'm a teacher.
Yes.
Listen, absolutely, I'm a teacher. There's a direct correlation between youth employment and violence reduction. Here's something else, though. I'm promoting an ordinance. It's called Treatment Not Trauma. Treatment Not Trauma provides first responders to deal with mental health crises, because almost 40% of the 911 calls that come through are mental health crises. Police officers are not social workers. We're asking too much of law enforcement. If we actually had trained professionals on the front line to deal with essentially 40% of the calls that come through, that ultimately frees up law enforcement to deal with the more severe crime. Here's why that's important. Over 40% of the crime that takes place in the city of Chicago occurs in only 6% of the entire city. This is about being smarter. And so my plan is better and stronger. It's going to make our community safer, because we're going to be smart and strategic about how we treat our residents, but also how we do policing in the city of Chicago.
I guess my question is, though, I get that standpoint. I grew up in the city of Chicago too. I'm a Chicago Park District kid too. And the difference is, I know the Chicago Park District, it's not necessarily promoted throughout like merit, right? Like it's all a bid system, and you got to go to a playground first before you get a park. So, like, do you know the system I'm talking about particularly?
Yes.
Like I remember there was an instructor who we all loved. He was a great guy, and we wanted him to take over park supervisor at Hiawatha Park. And it was like, he's going to lead the park and he's going to make all these great programs. But it's like, oh no, he can't, because he's got to go to here first. And, and then someone else took over the park, and like a lot of the good programs shut down or whatever. It's like, how do you, how that systematic approach, it's kind of broken on that level too. And I don't know how do you get there?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, so first of all, between the Park District and the YMCA, so I do have to give a shout out. I was more of a YMCA kid, but the point is that you're making is that parks have to be like a fundamental aspect of neighborhood and communities. And the way you capture the essence of what parks can mean is that this is why investment and funding is critical, right? Because absent investment and funding, what you end up having in it is, the local particular director has to finagle and work with a non-for-profit or some sort of volunteer operation to be able to have a program for 6 weeks that may not come back the next session. As a Cook County Commissioner, most people don't know this, but we're also in charge of the forest preserves. Thousands and thousands of acres of which we've been able to not only clean up the forest preserves, but offer critical programs that exist throughout the entire county of Cook. That's a matter of will and competency. As a leader, here's what people can expect from a Johnson administration: someone who is compassionate, someone who is collaborative, and someone who is competent. Look, I was raised in a very large family. You got to be compassionate, right? Just because it was so many of us. You certainly got to be collaborative when you only have one bathroom, right? And you have to demonstrate competence. We're going to put forth the best people in the city of Chicago who have experienced the type of Chicago you're talking about, and we're going to prioritize it. We are.
And those funds, like there's no other way to do that. Like, and you believe that the best way suited is to take officers off the street, or is this? I don't want to put words in your mouth. Like that's what I want. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Sure,
like,
I got you.
That's what I just.
So let me give you an example. So right now we have roughly anywhere from 500 to 1,000 police officers who are assigned to desk duty. If we pass treatment, not trauma, or I should say when we pass treatment, not trauma, we at least know that we don't have to have law enforcement responding en masse to every single mental health crisis that comes across the 911 dispatch, right? We also know that, again, over 40% of the crime that takes place in the city of Chicago, it takes place in 6% of the city. We know where there's a greater propensity for the type of violence that we all are living through right now is going to occur. And so part of my plan relieves officers who are assigned to desk to show up on the front line to be supportive to the rank and file. You know, all these individuals in this race that are talking about they're going to hire 1,000 more police officers, 1,600 more detectives, they're lying. Where are you going to find 1,000 police officers overnight? Do you know how long it takes to become a police officer in the city of Chicago? It takes 18 months. I'm halfway through my first term. We can actually redeploy support on the front line with individuals who are assigned to desk duty, and then we could call retirees back to provide support with paperwork and desk duty. Look, I'm a teacher. Could you imagine asking a retired teacher after 34 years to come back and teach first grade? It's ridiculous. You're going to ask someone who's dedicated 25, 30 years of their life to the front line to put on a blue uniform again or a white shirt and return to the front line? That's ridiculous to make that a part of your plan. We've done this at the county level. Retirees from county government came to the support of the paperwork and processing of information because there was such a backlog to help streamline the process. If there's any place for a retiree or retired police officer to come and provide support, it's providing the type of infrastructure shifts that we need to make sure that we're doing all that we need to do to process information, to process the paperwork. Those officers who are assigned to desk can provide more support and strategic support where we know the crime has more of a propensity to actually occur. We do that, and we also right-size our government, particularly within, look, we have a police budget that's $300 million. There's graphic designers, social media specialists. Like, I'm going to audit all of that. We have more supervisors outside of sergeants than any other police department. I mean, why do we have a supervisor of a supervisor of a supervisor, right? This is the type of waste, or these are the type of dynamics that we have to audit, so that, again, we're being strategic and smart. We're not going to receive 1,000 more educators overnight, 1,000 nurses overnight, 1,000 police officers overnight. We have to be smart and strategic about how we administer law enforcement in this city. And under my plan, it's a better, stronger, safer Chicago that calls for investments. We reduce the deficit, and we redeploy law enforcement assigned to desk duty to provide the support in the front line, so that the type of response that we need in this moment, that there's greater support to do that.
And then educators, we haven't talked about that yet. Obviously, that's we've talked about it from your perspective and your experience, I should say, but obviously big endorsement with CTU, right? And then out of nowhere, Tuesday night, like there was a little, what was that about? There was a little backlash or something? What's going on with that?
I mean, it's Chicago. I mean, it's, again, as I said, are there forces that are intimidated by the voices of working people, yes, it's going to be a new day in the city of Chicago. I'm going to prioritize working people, middle-class families, the dream that our ancestors, all of our ancestors dreamed of, whether you came up 55 North, 57 North, or whether you came from Central America, South America, Europe, the continent of Africa, wherever you've come, the Middle East, to call Chicago your home. We're going to have a better, stronger, united, safer city. And there are forces that are intimidated by that. And so, look, that's the thing. The fact that I'm already being protested as if I'm the mayor of the city of Chicago already, let's just call it preseason. I'll be ready when that day comes.
Yeah, because that's what happened. For people that don't know, Tuesday night there were some hecklers in the crowd. At
first, I thought it was some former students.
Oh yeah,
It's like, what is my 7th grade class again? What's going on here?
Give someone a bad grade or something?
Could it be anything? But we got through it, and we're going to be just fine. I mean, like I said, I come from a large family. We fight all the time. We literally fight over the Thanksgiving menu, and it's the same menu every year. We'll be fine.
What's the biggest disagreement on that menu?
As long as there are greens and I'm not hosting, I'm good.
That's it?
That's it. If we have greens and it's not at my house, everything else, I don't care.
Well, you got to host at least once. Why not?
Well, how about this? When I'm the mayor of the city of Chicago, if my family is listening, I'm happy to talk to my wife about it.
There you go. There you go. There you go. All right, then. Brandon, thanks for coming on. Is there anything else you kind of didn't get out there that you kind of want to talk about here?
No, you nailed it. I appreciate the opportunity, the ability to have real public accommodations supported in this city. I mean, those are the dreams of our ancestors. I mean, the fact that no matter where you are in this city, you have to apply for a school. We have to shift and change that and make the neighborhood a place where people can feel good about and feel safe in. Again, reliable transportation, investing in jobs, closing the gap between economic opportunities and education. The more we do that, it sets us up for a better, stronger, safer Chicago. And I'm looking forward to the conversations ahead, and I'm looking forward to running the city of Chicago.
Yeah, I hear you. And that's what I'm just kind of giving everyone the opportunity to do, like just kind of hear everyone out and hear what the plan is. So it was great to have you in. And, like I said, I care a lot about the city, and I just want to see it thrive. So
yeah, you and me both. And just for the record, though, I appreciate the beard game.
All right.
No, listen, and I believe I'll be the first mayor with a full beard in modern history.
Really?
So I don't know if that's going to get me 17 more votes or not, but I think Beards for Brandon has to be a thing that you start.
Beards for Brandon, okay.
Beards for Brandon.
All right, we could get the, instead of like the Ben Wallace, they had, people at the UC would wear the fro, we'll get the fake beards. Well, Matt Clement, the Cubs guy, too, they had the fake little goatees, but they'll be like, for
I
you.
love it. Let's do it.
Look at them for you. All right, Brandon Johnson, everybody. Anywhere any people could check you out to look forward to plans and whatnot?
Yeah, BrandonForChicago.com. Check us out there. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram. It tells you where we are. It lays out our plan. And we're all over the city having a blast. So catch me out there in the city of Chicago, whether it's Ravenswood or Inglewood, Jefferson Park or McKinley Park, everywhere else in between. A better, stronger, safer Chicago is ahead.
Beautiful. All right, everybody. That's it for today. That's the second candidate we've had on, and we're going to keep having them on until the election comes. So thank you for listening. That's it for today. That's it for this week. We'll be back on Monday. We will see you then.